says whilst. It says whilst instead of while. We now return to the Great British Ace Attorney. Chiefly British Ace Attorney. We're beginning episode... Is it episode 4, really? I guess, because the second case... Third? The third case had no trial. It was the Herlock Sholmes episode where we just did deductions. And this might be the same way because we got his icon there. Wait, then is it more than... Yeah. First episode was a trial. Second was the investigations. Third episode was a trial again. This is fourth. We might be back to just doing investigation with no trial. Perhaps. And as games are not terribly long, the next episode may be the last one. Adventure of the Clouded Kokoro. Kokoro being Japanese for heart.
I begin to think, Wilson, said Sholmes, turning his head languidly in my direction, that there is more to this case than that which we have observed. Indeed, that there may be another part to this story that we are yet to discover. His eyes wandered, following the steam rising from his cup of herbal tea.
Herbal.
Leading him to the distant memory of that snowy evening. To the young lady collapsed on the pavement along Briar Road, and to the knife in her back. Lit in the soft glow of gas lamps, a most extraordinary scene had been set. And under the cover of a light fog, the curtain had risen silently on the insoluble mystery of our invisible killer.
Solid Snake did it. Easy. Oh, we are not back in Japan. For some reason, I guess because it was Clouded Kokoro, it was like, maybe this next one takes place in Japan. Perhaps not. Did you sleep last night, Mr. Naruhodo? No, not at all. It was an enormous hotel, wasn't it? The rooms were so luxurious, I felt like we were staying in a palace. And with all the gas lights twinkling, it was brighter than day, even in the middle of the night. What about the enormous beds? After my time on the SS Buria, I wasn't going to waste a single inch of that space. I spent the entire night rolling from one side of the mattress to the other. Oh yes, it really was the sort of night you can only dream of normally. Except, when I learnt that we owed £3 for the rooms, that dream quickly turned into a nightmare. Oops, sorry about that. The building was so impressive and the entrance so inviting, I just wandered in without thinking. In a lodging house in Japan, that sum of money would put a roof over your head for a whole year. I did try, but I'm afraid I couldn't help my tears when we were presented with the bill. Ugh, I really am sorry. Well, never mind. We must find some more affordable lodgings straight away, though. If we're not careful, our entire stipend will be used up in 10 days or less. I didn't know we had a stipend. I thought we were penniless. Shillingless. With not even tuppence to our name. Let alone 5 pence. Ugh, London is a scary place. Good morning to you at this early hour. Oh, yes! We are, well... Good morning to you, Lord Chief Justice. We've come to report on the outcome of the trial at the Old Bailey yesterday. Susato-san is amazing. She doesn't bat an eyelid, even in the presence of the imposing Lord Strongheart. Yes, I believe you had a very comprehensive initiation into British courtroom practices. Oh, yes, it was very eye-opening. Thank you. And in accordance with your instructions, Lord Strongheart, Mr. Naruhodo performed his duty to the end. Dutifully getting an acquittal for a guilty man. Yes, I've already been apprised of events. You conducted a remarkable defense. You may consider the test passed. Oh. No longer are you a student from the Empire of Japan. You may henceforth claim to be a fully fledged lawyer. Birds and all. My country is delighted to welcome young talent from such a remote eastern land. Thank you very much. So, I'm a lawyer now. Now, in view of your new appointment, I have a fresh case in mind for you. I'd like you to take it on at once, for free. Still haven't been paid for the last one, by the way. I trust that won't be a problem. Another case already? Nothing trains a lawyer better than practical experience. I'm sure I don't sense dissatisfaction, do I? You sense some dots? It's just that yesterday's trial ended unusually. I haven't quite come to terms with it. That's right! At the end, they were like, hey, let's give this omnibus a once-over, if you don't mind. And it caught fire with someone locked inside, and we never found out who it was. What's to come to terms with? The man was cleared. What more were you hoping for? The culpability of the defendant has not at the present time been established by this court. Consequently, the jury will not be required to proffer judgment. Well, Lord Van Zeeks, it's been a pleasure, so it has. As for you, my dear fellow, my dear dude, I couldn't have asked for a better defense. Ah ha 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 ha. I just can't help wondering if Mr. McGilded really was innocent. Mr. Naruhodo! It's just that I never managed to ascertain the truth. Can one really be called innocent if you don't convict the real murderer on the spot that very day of their trial? And then the trial ended. Well, you needn't let it trouble you for a second longer. Sorry? What do you mean, Lord Strongheart? Magnus McGilded passed away immediately following the trial. No! What? Mr. McGilded is dead? He's gone to that great big tidal wave in the sky. I have 19 minutes and 41 seconds until my next engagement. Time enough to talk. You're not really timing me. I could sit on this screen for days with your little gears and cogs and metal gears turning. Don't fool me for a moment. Alright. Tell me about his death. I don't understand. What happened? How can he be dead? After the trial concluded yesterday, there was a great commotion in the Old Bailey. As you'll presumably recall, an omnibus had been wheeled into the courtroom. Yes, of course. That was the scene of the crime, which Mr. McGilded had been accused of. Precisely. Well, while the bailiff's attention was diverted by some other matter, the omnibus went up in flames. No! Oh, were we not even there? Oh, I guess, yeah, he doesn't even know. We weren't there. How could such a thing have happened? That is being investigated as we speak, but already the police have identified a corpse found inside the charred shell of the carriage as that of McGilded, meaning it certainly was not. Someone else wearing his top hat is framed for death. Okay. That's awful. The man must have slipped inside while the bailiff's attention was elsewhere. That bailiff really needs to pay more attention. And how could that have happened? That is also being investigated as we speak. Thinking back now, immediately after the trial, Mr. McGilda did mention going back into the courtroom to look at the omnibus. Well, I must be hanging 5 now. 'Tis time for the inspection. Sorry, what inspection? They're going to examine the omnibus again, so I'm told. I asked if I could be present for it myself. An inspection of the omnibus? Not to my knowledge. I don't believe Scotland Yard had any intention of re-examining the carriage. But then who was Mr. McGilda talking about? Never mind that now. The Yard is making a thorough investigation. This matter is no longer any concern of yours. Leave it to the police. Poor Mr. McGilda. Bridgecourt. What up? So, how did you find your first taste of our country's Supreme Court? Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, it was, wow. There sure were a lot more Hadoukens than in Japanese court. Mr. Naruhodo means that the whole experience was steeped in the solemnity of Great Britain's long history. It's really a world apart from our own judicial system in Japan, which is only a few short decades old. Wow, Susato-san has such a way with words. And you seem to have a way of failing to find the right ones. The judicial system here is the most advanced in the world. Learn all you can. The most advanced in the world, is it? It was fortunate that your very first trial was a simple affair. Simple? That was simple? As I believe I mentioned yesterday, it was a trial you couldn't lose. I don't mean to be contrary, Long Strongheart, but the case was anything but simple. The circumstances of the case were so incriminating, I was stunned when I first heard them. In fact, I'm still finding it hard to believe that we managed to get a favorable verdict. Something funny? Am I here to amuse you, like a clown? No, my apologies. However, the fact is that you did receive the not guilty verdict you set out to achieve. And that can only be attributed to exceptional talent. Wouldn't you agree? Oh, I don't know about that. Well, never mind. You exceeded my expectations, I freely admit. That much, at least, is an undeniable truth. Which is precisely why I've prepared the new case for you that I mentioned before. What's going on? What was he going to say before? I don't know. Could you perhaps give some more details about the new case you mentioned? Don't tell me it's a murder and the trial starts in 10 minutes! Don't worry. It's nothing so alarming or quite so urgent as your last assignment. In fact, this case is completely different. Oh, I see. Did he just read my mind? That is to say, no one has died as yet. And the trial will not be today. There is plenty of time to research the case thoroughly. 23 hours, 43 minutes, and 19 seconds to be precise. So the trial's tomorrow, then. Is everything all right? Oh, yes. I'm just a little confused, that's all. Yesterday's trial was... well, it's left me wondering if I'm really cut out for being a lawyer. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo. I don't know if I could face standing in that courtroom again after Mr. McGilded's trial. Ah, yes. I nearly forgot. There is one similarity with yesterday's case. Once again, there is currently no one to advocate for the defense. Oh. If the situation remains unchanged, the trial will start tomorrow with the defendant unrepresented. And if that happens, I need not remind you of the inevitable outcome. The most terrible end awaits the defendant. Yes, that's right. Here we go again. It definitely is not. I ain't even been streaming for 19 minutes. You said I had more time. I would advise you to begin making preparations for tomorrow's trial. After all, the clock is ever ticking. Alright, so the final boss of the game has time powers. Got it. There is now but 23 hours, 26... This is false. This is false information. Last time he mentioned the 23 hours, he said there was plenty of time. One more thing, Mr. Naruhodo. There is something I should like to ask you. Oh, what's that? Yesterday you remarked upon something. That you intend to see through the will of your late compatriot, Mr. Asogi. I would be interested to hear exactly what you mean by that. Inside 34 seconds. Oh, well, Rap God. Rap God go. Cosmo always used to say, you see, that he wanted to learn how the greatest justice system in the world works so we could change ours in Japan. Now that he's gone, I'd like to work towards that myself. And there's another thing. There's, Another thing, continue. Alright, second verse. On the way here, on the steamship, he said something to me. There's something very important I have to do. And something very important? And what exactly would that be? Alright, third verse. He never had a chance to tell me. I suppose he would have done, if he had ever made it to Great... You're out of time. Well, thank you for an enlightening discussion. I enjoyed your raps. Your Japanese raps. Mr. Naruhodo, what's this all about? Mr. Asogi never once mentioned anything of the sort to me. I urge you both to focus your attentions on the matter at hand. I've taken the liberty of summoning the police inspector in charge of the case. He'll be able to apprise you of the details. How long has he been there? So, I wish you the best of luck, and bid you farewell. There's something very important that I have to do. Kazuma-sama, what did you mean? I wish I knew, but honestly, he never told me. Anyway, we'd better talk to the detective, don't you think? Yes, you're right. I hope I'm just imagining it, but I wouldn't say he looks pleased to see us at all. Fish and chips? Piccadilly Circus? Scarborough Fair? Could we trouble you? What do you think? Ugh! Lovely weather, isn't it? What's the weather got to do with anything? Ugh! Listen to me, you young Japanese upstart. Some frippery about the weather doesn't get every English gent eaten out of your hand, you know? Ah, but Susato-san told me it was foolproof. I'm a busy man, a very busy man, with a very bottomless newspaper full of fish and chips. There's a crime scene to investigate, but I'm here having to give the likes of you a talking to. Oh, I'm ever so sorry. Can you imagine what the other officers will be there saying, Haven't seen Gregson anywhere, have you? No, he's too busy with the bigwigs these days. All because of some bumpkin who's here on a jaunt from a country I've never even heard of. Hear that ripping sound? That's my reputation at the yard going to tatters. No need to rip us apart as well. Or your food. I don't believe we've been introduced. This is Mr. Ryunosuke Naruhodo, a defense lawyer. Eh? It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant, Eh? It's lovely weather we're having today, isn't it? It is unseasonably fine, I grant you. London winters don't see a lot of sunshine. Unbelievable! How did she pull that off? So, Lord Strongheart has asked me to fill you in on the case. The name's Tobias Gregson, Inspector Gregson to you. I'm from Scotland Yard. Gregson? Inspector Gregson? It's a matter of Susato-san. Does this detective's main name mean something to her? Who cares about who you are? Tell me about the case. About the case that the Lord Chief Justice mentioned before. Nothing to tell, really. As far as we're concerned at the yard, it couldn't be simpler. Oh dear, that probably means that as far as we're concerned as lawyers, it couldn't be more complicated. I wish you were wrong about that, but I have a nasty feeling you're right. A young woman was walking along the pavement on Briar Road when she was stabbed from behind. Hee hee, they call it pavement instead of sidewalk. Fortunately, it wasn't fatal, but she's still laid up in the hospital, unconscious. That's despicable. What sort of coward would attack the poor woman from behind? I suppose you would have finished whoever it was off with a Susato takedown, would you? That is neither here nor there, Mr. Naruhodo. Brace yourself, Ryunosuke. You've angered her now. Anyway, after something of a whirlwind investigation, the criminal was arrested. We barely had time for a cup of tea after the incident took place, to be honest. So there must have been something left at the scene that led you directly to the culprit? Or perhaps a reliable witness who recognized the person in question. I stop you right there. You're wasting your time on this one. Sorry? Nothing you can do. There's no way to help the bloke now. Why ever not? Simple. The prosecutor that's been assigned to the trial tomorrow is Lord Barak von Zeeks. No! Oh, sounds like you've heard of him then. Yeah, I just defeated him utterly. Oh yes, we are very familiar with Lord von Zeeks, the mini-boss. Believed to be the harbinger of death itself, the Reaper of the Bailey. Lord Barak von Zeeks, who we faced in court only yesterday and soundly trounced. Mr. McGilda told us about him before the trial, didn't he? When Van Zeeks stands for the prosecution, they call the accused his sacrificial lambs. And in every single trial in which he's been the prosecutor, except for one, the accused has been damned. This Reaper of the Bailey nickname, I suppose he's earned that because every defendant he advocates is found guilty. Is that it? Well, if that's the case, we should inform you, Inspector, that in yesterday's trial against Lord Van Zeeks, Mr. Naruhodo secured a verdict of not guilty. What of it? Oh, well, I think that means that even against the Reaper of the Bailey, it's not impossible to save the defendant. No, you really don't have a clue, do you? What do you mean? What happened to that bloke in the end, eh? He's dead. Magnus McGilded came a cropper, alright. Came a cropper in that omnibus when it went up in flames. So you can't rightly say you saved the defendant, can you? What are you saying? It doesn't count as a victory unless your client lives forever. Look, if Van Zieks could get the dirt to stick on everyone, he'd be a miracle worker, but that's not how it goes. He doesn't work miracles, he works magic. Black magic. I'd have a good long think about that if I were you. Are we really supposed to believe that? It's like believing in Karain channeling technique. Nonsense. Oh, this is cool. We get the... This is Ace Attorney 1 investigation music, isn't it? Oops. Inspector, are you perhaps the Inspector Gregson? I don't know. He's like, no, that was my dad. You're acting like you know this man, Mr. Saddleback. He's a London detective. I do know him very well, in fact. Very well? Yes, he features prominently in the adventures of Herlock Sholmes. Oh, in that publication. What's it called again? Randst magazine? That's right. Inspector Gregson and Mr. Sholmes enjoy a friendly rivalry. Really? You rival the great Mr. Sholmes? That's incredible. Well, I don't know about that. Mr. Sholmes isn't a professional like myself, of course, but he does come up with the goods from time to time. So, it's strange because if... Okay, so Sherlock Holmes, the inspector is named Inspector Lestrade, I guess. And we met someone else who has the last name Lestrade, so I don't know what Gregson has to do with anything. Is Lestrade... Maybe there's more than one inspector in Sherlock Holmes. Mr. Sholmes is equally complimentary about you, Inspector, isn't he? You've earned his highest praise. Sup, Shoob? Gregson is the pick of a bad lot of all the Scotland Yarders. Those were his own words. That's his highest praise? Well, Mr. Sholmes isn't particularly known for giving compliments, you see. That he is not. Thanks to that magazine, my name's known all over London town now. That's great, isn't it? So what did you miss? Not a whole lot. We had a conversation with, whatever his name is, the Chief Justice guy. And he was like, oh, Magnus McGilted? Yeah, he died in the fire yesterday. He was the guy who was locked inside the thing. And they're like, yeah, he died. And then they're like, we have another case for you. It starts tomorrow, so you have plenty of time to investigate it. Also, it's not a murder case. The victim who was stabbed is alive, just unconscious in the hospital. It's a woman who was stabbed in the back. We don't know who did it yet. And then we've been talking to the police inspector here. Plenty of time. Plenty of time. So much time that we certainly won't be able, won't need or be able to file an injunction for more time. Well, I have to admit that to start with, I was a little flattered by all the attention. Everyone wanted to shake my hand, and my reputation at the yard went through the roof. Well, that's wonderful. No, it is not. There's nothing more sinister than the man on the street. People are always looking at me now. They're whispering rumors about me under their breath, I'm sure. Rumors? Are you quite sure? He's changed since he started appearing in those stories. The fame's gone to his head. Stuff like that. Gosh. Do you really think people are saying such mean-spirited things about you? Like I said, they whisper, so I can't catch exactly what they're saying. But I know what folk are like. I'm sure that's what they're saying. As sure as eggs is eggs. And check the court record for eggs. Make sure that they're eggs. Yeah, it checks out. He's right. I get the feeling this detective could be very hard work. Oh dear, perhaps a sudden rise to fame does change people. I'm so concerned. Like, I thought this chair was comfortable when I got it, and it still is. But I'm concerned about the fact that, like, it feels like when I'm sitting on it that I'm stretching the fabric, because it's like it's mesh without a cushion underneath or anything, which I'm sure they thought of when they engineered it. But it feels like another couple of weeks, and it's gonna be like, yep, it's broken now. It's broken because you put your butt on it. What were you thinking? It was only a chair. Right. Well, I've filled you in as requested, and I'm very nearly out of chips. So I'll be heading back to the crime scene now. We're still carrying out a few investigations there. He's definitely had his ego, bro. It was Briar Road, you said, didn't you? Where the incident took place. That's correct, ma'am. If you head over to the holding cells, you can meet the criminal himself. You've branded him a criminal already? He's as good as. Shaken like a leaf in his cell, he is. It'll give you a chuckle, if nothing else. Inmate 53. Speak to the jailer, and he'll show you the way. Inmate 53. Thank you. So there's no helping anyone against the Reaper of the Bailey, they say. Something troubling you, Mr. Naruhodo? That was the other, just before you came in. The inspector was insinuating that the reputation of Reaper of the Bailey was not interrupted by the fact that that we got our guy found not guilty. He's like, no, he's like, it would be so unrealistic if he won every single case. It's just that everyone who goes up against him either, you know, is found guilty and dies, or is found not guilty and then dies. Or they didn't say that exactly. They're like, he's like, he said something about black magic. Like, as if to intimidate, to suggest that he has a deal with the devil. And that, like, you're doomed if you go up against him, regardless of whether you're found guilty or not. Is something troubling you, Mr. Naruhodo? To tell the truth, when I recall the trial yesterday, I can't stop myself from shaking. The idea of facing the Reaper in court again is... Well, if you think it's too much for you, there's no shame in turning the case down. That takes courage, too. But if the man they've arrested is innocent... You could well imagine he would be shaking like a leaf in his cell. And I, for one, wouldn't find the sight of that funny. So, if I'm honest, I'm still reeling from the shock of yesterday's events myself, and I'm really not sure if I'll be able to help this man, whoever he is, but I'd like to try, so I think I'm going to make some enquiries. Will you help? Did you really think you had to ask? After all, I am your judicial assistant. Thank you. So, then, shall we? Yes! Let's go. Falcon, uppercut. Oh, delightful. So these are British prison cells. Oh, they're ghastly. It feels just like a dungeon. Yes, and having experienced it in Japan myself, I can assure you that our wooden cells feel a lot cozier than these cold stone walls. Oh, don't, Mr. Naruhodo. You're making it seem worse. Apparently, our client is in this cell here, but it's so dark at the back there, I can't make him out. I wonder what he's like. Inmate 53, your legal representative is here to see you. Stop by in at the back of the cell and show your face at once. Am I a cat, as yet with no name? Is he? Ah, we're representing a cat. Sounds good. Calling me by a number, it's utterly, unbelievably, unjustly unreasonable. I refuse to answer. Mr. Naruhodo, what? What do you think is going on here? I have no idea, but I wasn't just hearing things, was I? That tirade of complaints was in Japanese. You are hearing things. That was English. Excuse me. Shh, Shizukani. They're all around, hiding. I know they are. They're watching, listening. Even now, I can sense it. Right. So, could I ask you There you are! Come to curse me, haven't you? Don't try to hide it. You're a ghost! A ghost? This freaking guy. There's no such thing as ghosts. We mean you no harm, Pudizana-san? Are you Japanese by any chance? Korewa. Yume datte nano ka? Shitsurei shimasu. Gomen nasai. Oh, it's Daijobu. We were just a little surprised. We were a little bikurishita. That's all. Imagine it. It's been 12 long months since I left my hometown, and here I am in a frightful fix in a foreign land. So hearing the sweet, sentimental tones of a compatriot's voice here in this damp, dark hellhole was a most monumentally moving... Jojo? Jojo, is that you? Who could have guessed that this new client Lord Strongheart assigned to us had a stand? Would turn out to be a fellow Japanese. What compassion my fellow countrymen show. To dispatch a first-class lawyer all the way from Japan to defend a mere foreign student. Is that he's just gonna do that every time? Noble, nurturing, never-failing Nippon. He likes alliteration. Okay. A first-class lawyer? Oh dear, I think there's been something of a misunderstanding here. I wonder, would you be so kind as to tell us what's happened? Why you've been detained as a suspect, for example? Yes, I can, I will. Shan't stay solid and silent. Is he saying something that's 4 characters long, and he's like making the characters with his body? Is that it? And they couldn't do anything with that in English, so they just said, he just says 4 words instead that all start with the same letter. I'm not quite sure I understand what he means, but he seems happy. Yes, he does. Just hope he actually has a good reason to be. Thank you for your cooperation. I am a lawyer, as you said. My name is Ryunosuke Naruhodo. And I'm Naruhodo-san's judicial assistant, Susato Mikotoba. I am a visiting student sent here by our government. Notoriously named Natsume. Soseki Natsume. Soseki Natsume-san? What an unusual name. Is it? Is it unusual? I don't know why I'm thinking about it. Thinking won't help. Natsume... Natsumi is a girl's name. And so is Natsuki. Is that the problem? He's going to say it sounds like a girl's name? Also, which one is the first name? Hold on. They've said, alright, Naruhodo's name, they're saying in Japanese order, where his family name is first. So, Yes, Soseki Natsume-san. If only Pitch Shifter were here. He could tell me. Be like, I don't know anyone named Natsume. What an unusual name. Call me Soseki, please. I'm a poet, you see. A writer of haiku. Oh, maybe he's saying haiku every time he goes and does his little thing. It's something of a nom de plume. A nom de plume? You mean an alias? That's right, Naruhodo-san. No! Don't be so prosaic. It's much more refined than that. And haiku? That really reminds me of home. Did I hear you say you were a visiting student sent over here by our government? Yes, that's right. A year ago I was told to go and study English. First I had to suffer that misery, and now this! It's beyond the pale! Suffer that misery? Did you not want to study here? No. I mean, I've had an interest in Great Britain for some years, of course. Oh. But... just because the government tells you to do something, does it mean you can do it? No. What do you mean? If they told me to study English literature, that I could have understood. That's my field. But no, they told me to study the English language. How are you gonna? You gotta. No, you can't. Books have words. What are you? Was he reading English literature for the pictures? Were you? He's like, studying English literature. I love it. I look at the cover of the book all day. It's wonderful. I see. Only the other day I was told to send a report about my first year here. I tendered a blank piece of paper. Wise words on white washi. Dab. You must be a man of great standing. Oh yes. So I'm often told. And often like to be told, it seems. Alright, who'd you kill? Could you perhaps tell us exactly why you've been arrested, Soseki-san? I didn't do it! I didn't commit that atrocious murder. Murder? Oh, no, it's alright. The woman didn't actually die, did she? But she was stabbed with a knife, right before my eyes. Before your eyes? You mean you saw the attacker? I didn't see anyone. What? If I'd seen the person who did it, do you think I'd be locked up in here? Oh dear. Seems this case is becoming rather complicated. Why me? Why me? Why did that silly woman have to be stabbed right in front of me? It's the curse of London. It's... Oh, maybe he's a ninja. He's doing he's gonna doton go kyoku no kodoba. So Seki-san was there at the scene, but he didn't see the attacker. It's vital that we find out more about the case. It was an accursed evening, just after the snow had started to clear, and heavy with fog. I'd been to the bookshop to buy some books. I like to look at the pictures, you see. And I was on my way back to my accursed lodgings. Sure the bookshop wasn't accursed, too? As I was walking along that accursed pavement, I could make out the sole silhouette of another ahead of me. A woman wearing a green overcoat she was, and just as I went to overtake her... Blah. She suddenly let out a little scream and collapsed onto the cold, hard slabs of stone at my feet. How terrible! I called out to the woman, but she didn't move. It was like a ghostly, ghoulish, grim graveyard. Slight exaggeration there, perhaps. I was terrified. I had to get away from there, so I ran as fast as my legs would carry me back to my accursed lodgings. That's not good. They'll say it was shameful, I know. A shameful display. To run away like that. Tell me, Soseki-san, was the victim an acquaintance of yours? Don't be bakana! Do you think I know any of these fair-haired English, and a young woman at that? I'm diffident, shy, timid, unsure. I'm a kobold from 14 who speaks in synonyms all the time. I can't talk to people. I see. A young woman unknown to Soseki-san. And at the time it happened, who else did you see nearby? Did anybody pass you? Regrettably, apart from myself and the woman, I didn't see a soul. No one? Oh, great. So the victim was unknown to you, and there was nobody else on the street at the time. That creates something of a conundrum, doesn't it? What conundrum? What do you mean, Susato-san? What's the conundrum? Well, if what Soseki-san has just told us is true, there's something I can't explain. He says that he didn't know the victim and that there was no one else at the scene. Then he apparently fled without having been seen. I did. I said, "Nikicha dameda," but then I ran away anyway. But if that's the case, surely this man has to be the culprit. Arg, you! What did you just say? Nothing. I didn't say anything. Oops. Perhaps I thought that a little loudly. Actually, that's not what was troubling me. What troubling me was how did they catch him? What I was thinking was, how did Soseki-san actually come to be arrested? Sorry? He didn't touch the victim, and there was nobody at the scene to see him. So how did the police ever discover that he was there in the first place? Oh, yes. She's right. It was him. That accursed great detective. He led the police to me. Of all the bad luck. Accursed great detective? Could it be? I shall never forget that man's name as long as I live. With his haughty laugh and his self-proclaimed greatness. Bash, big-headed busybody, be gone! May you be cursed until the end of your days, Herlock Sholmes. I knew it. Mr. Sholmes? Well, I didn't expect to hear that name from this man's lips, that's for sure. It was the morning after that nightmare had unfolded on the pavement before me. I was gnawing on a sliver of hard cheese when some men suddenly burst in through the door. Cheese was the murderer. Open and shut case. Episode 5. Here we come. They started shouting at me, "This is the police, put the weapon down." Yes, it was a thin sliver, and yes, it was hard, but I wasn't eating a weapon. Disgusting dietary discrimination devils. Okay. You clearly had a trying morning yesterday. And there he was, in the middle of all the policemen, grinning like a Cheshire cat. That Herlock Sholmes. It's actually just Herlock Sholmes. He's English. I've since found out that he's a famous name in detection here in London. Yes, the great detective is really very well known. And his overly sharp mind managed to deduce my whereabouts, apparently. He thinks I'm the knife-wielding madman. Me, this weak, stooped kitten of a man? I wonder what great deduction process led him to this conclusion this time. Do you mean to say that Mr. Sholmes' deduction was the only reason the police arrested you? That would be really most unreasonable. He's like, oh, and then after that, I stabbed 5 more people. Well, the thing is, I was thrown into a panic when they barged their way in. Of course you were. That's only natural. I was terrified and trembling, and they kept throwing question after question at me in impossible English. Fiendish, fourish, flim-flammery? Well, we are in England. You can't really blame them for questioning you in English. Oh, good point, good point. But my mind went blank. I knew I had to answer, but I didn't know what to say. So I just kept repeating things like, yes, Yes, I do. I am fine. The next thing I knew, I was in manacles, and before I knew it, I was thrown in here. Oh dear, I'm afraid that's hardly surprising. I'm fine. He's not fine now. Yes, I do. Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Oh, you can just call me Naruhodo. That joke doesn't translate. And when we're speaking English, a simple Mr. is more than enough. Oh yes, alright, yes. They've really got to me. This country is poisoning my mind. But please, I beg you to defend me in court tomorrow. You can tell them what really happened. You'll do it, won't you? Well, Why? Naze? Why is it so hard to say yes to me? Well, the thing is, I'm just a student like yourself, on a study tour. A student? I've defended a case in the Old Bailey. Only the one, though. But at this moment in time, I really don't know what I'm supposed to believe in. I'm confused about what justice in this country even means. Oh, Naruhodo-san. I'm not even the foreign student who was supposed to be here. I'm a sort of locum lawyer, I suppose. It's a fancy word. But that armband, that's the mark of a defense lawyer from our great empire. It's a keepsake from the man who should have been here. He was my best friend, and by wearing it, I am blatantly misleading people. If it really is so symbolic, like, this like, shows that you are an official... He's like, oh, but I'm just wearing it as a goof. I'm just wearing it for the memes, you know. A keepsake. I know exactly what they're saying about me. Oh, who do you mean? The lawyers. All the British defense lawyers. They won't defend me. Goodness! Why do you say that? For the same reason as you noted before. When it happened, there was only the victim and myself around, and I ran away from the scene of the crime. I'm not a baka. I know it looks as though I must be the culprit. It must be very hard for you, Soseki-san. And anyway, I'm a student from overseas. I'm just a foreign nobody to them, someone not to be trusted. I heard them openly laughing about me before, in earshot, without any compunction at all. Every time I did my JoJo poses, they would laugh. Any trial for this man would be a waste of time, they said. And of course the foreigner did it. They even had the gall to say, the man doesn't understand half of what's being said anyway. That's awful! They're wrong! I've studied more English than half the policemen out there on the streets. I've traveled halfway around the world to learn about these people's country and its great history. But no one here wants to listen to a man with a strange accent. They all hate me. So at the very least, I'd like to entrust my fate to someone who can listen to me in my native tongue. You could do it, couldn't you? When I look into your eyes, I can see it. I can see what you've been through. Soseki-san, it's just that... Give me a little time, please. I'll do what I can for the time being. What do you mean? We shall investigate the case as thoroughly as possible. If we can find some clues, it will give us a much better chance, I'm sure. Oh, yes. Thank you. I'll be here, all alone, waiting for you, locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. We should be going then, Naruhodo-san. We have a case to prepare for. Can't examine here. Like, no point, it's just candles.